Welcome to my second devlog where I'm creating a video game about pickpocketing. In this video I'm just going to be going over the progress I made towards my game. So continuing on from the previous video, I fixed this first problem, which is the fact that the road is not infinite. So once you reach the last 10 blocks of road, no more road spawns. There's just these people that are floating in the air. So I went and did some coding and I went and fixed that problem. Next, I started working on the pause menu and setting up where I want the text in the pause menu to be. So when we click on the pause button, you can pause the game and then click anywhere to just continue the game. The next thing I added was a main menu. So I incorporated the main menu as part of the whole game, so it's in the same scene as the rest of the game. And I just added the title right here in the top left of the corner. Now mind you, it says game title. I haven't thought of an actual title of the game yet, so I'm just gonna go ahead and try to brainstorm a game title here and there a little bit later. But right now the game is game title, but it's a pickpocketing game. But I'm gonna figure out the title real soon. And then in the bottom of the screen we have play game, which just allows us to play the game. And then later on I'll add more features like a shop. I'm also going to add some money so that you can see how much money you have in the game. And then in the top right there's the settings button, which is just a prototype button and doesn't actually work yet. So there's some problems with this main menu. So right now the main menu, like, you can play the game with this main menu screen on. So I don't want the player to be able to actually play the game while the main menu is running. I want the player just to be walking straight and to be like a little thing of where once you click play, you're jumping into the game. You're jumping right straight into the action and not play and then you get into the action. Like I want the player already walking and then boom, click play, now you can start stealing. So there's some problems that are occurring right now. The first thing is civilians kind of run into the player while they're in the main menu because the player is walking through the middle lane in the beginning of the game. And as we can see here, the player is going to run into some civilians. So I went ahead and completely stopped civilians from spawning in the middle of the road while the main menu is running. So as you can see right now, the middle lane of the street is completely clear, so you can just completely walk straight and you'll have no problems here. The next thing I wanted to stop is I don't want the player to be able to swipe left or right while they're in the main menu. I want the player to almost be stuck in the middle because you don't want to be able to play the game before you click the play button and see all the play game UI. So I went ahead and did some coding and went ahead and fixed that problem there. Another problem I found in the game is that while you're actually while the game isn't actually playing, you're still able to steal stuff from the civilians. So I went ahead and also edited the code so that the player isn't able to sense if they're next to a civilian while the game is still in the main menu. So none of that code is even looking for civilians before we actually press on the play button. Now, the game looks pretty open on the left side of the screen because as we can see on the right side of the screen, the buildings are spawning, but on the left side there's nothing. And in the real life, that's not how it works. The left side of the road has buildings as well. So I went ahead and did some coding so that I can generate buildings on the left side of the screen as well, so that the left side doesn't look empty and it's just the right side. So I went ahead and added that as well. So there's a problem. I want to add some cars into the game, but we can't do that without any lines on the road because the cars need to follow the rules of traffic. So I need the cars to be able to go in these lines. So I hopped right back into Blender and did some adjustments on the road so that you can see the lines visibly and clearly. So I went ahead and just imported that right back into Unity, and now we can see the road lines look so crisp and smooth. So now I'm going to think about how I want to approach adding the car into the game. So I went ahead into Unity and just got a cube, and I just edited the dimensions of the X and Y and Z to make sure that I have a general idea of how big I want the car to be. And then I placed this car into the game, and that's kind of what I wanted the car to look like. So then I did some coding and started moving the car. I want the car to be moving up and down, so I want cars going forward and towards the player. So from and towards the player, that's what I want to add into the game, just so I know how the cars will look and how they spawn in correctly. So I'm done with all that coding. Now, what happens when we lose the game? It just says end game, and that's a pretty bland way to lose a game. So I kind of looked back at some inspiration, and you would notice in a similar game like Subway Surfers, when you lose the game, the security or the patrol guy comes and picks you up and, you know, sends you away. So I kind of want to implement something similar like that into my game. So I went into Blender and modeled a police officer. So I just added a little police officer, put a little star on his hat, a little star on his badge, and some nice little jeans. So that's a little police officer. And while I was in Blender, I thought, hey, why don't I make a car model as well, so that I don't have this little boxes driving around. So I went ahead and modeled that car as well, and I have a nice sleek little looking red car. And the final thing I modeled into the game was some handcuffs, because once the police gets too close to the player, we want to put handcuffs on them. So I modeled some handcuffs in Blender. So then I went ahead and imported the police into the game, and now we got a nice little police in the game, you know. I next went ahead and I also replaced the boxes with the actual cars. So now we got some cool cars actually driving on the road, and this is some really cool progress, you know, seeing the game moving forward in development. So before I'm actually able to make this end game screen, I want the player to have an idle animation, and I also want the player to have a arrested animation. So I hopped into Blender and created this idle animation and the arrest animation. So if we look into the game, how the game is going to run is once we actually miss a steal, the player is going to go into idle and stop, and the police is going to walk behind them, and once the police is close enough, the player is going to play the arrest animation. Now that I have all the animations, it's time for me to actually code this end game. So I went into Visual Studio and continued coding some code to get this end game working. So then I edited the police's position in the actual game just to get its all X, Y, and Z coordinates right, so I can get it working for the final end game animation. So this is the police endgame animation working in action. So that's all I wanted to show you for this video. That's just some progress I made on my game, titled Game Title for now. Of course, I'm going to eventually come up with a title and replace that in the main menu. So thank you very much for watching. Please smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe, turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next video. But I'm going to be going over game progression, because right now there's no really end goal of the game. So I want to go ahead and kind of think about adding a little game progression, how I want the game to progress, and some multipliers, you know, to get more money while you're stealing from these people. So that's what I'm going to be going and working on in the next devlog. So I'm gonna see you then. Peace.